Every great company starts with someone who says, there's gotta be a better way. This is the show for founders who go against all odds and push through when the odds say quit. The leaders who trade certainty for the pursuit of their vision and build something remarkable. This is Audacity of Entrepreneurs, where serial entrepreneurs, exited founders, executives, and their advisors have unfiltered conversations about what it really takes to build a company. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Audacity of Entrepreneurs. My next guest today is pretty much defines Audacity with her past. She was the executive director of a nonprofit for breast cancer and survivors as well as victims for 13 years. And after putting so much time into that, she decided, okay, it's time for me to start my own thing. Being an entrepreneur in her said, that's it, time has come. And she started her own operation. Today, she actually runs two operations. One of them is a podcast called Her Health Compass, and it's designed for women's health issues. And the podcast teaches women how to handle health issues. And it also airs on radio stations on Wednesdays. So that's one of her businesses. The other one is she runs a property management company for events. And when she's not working, she likes to travel to exciting new places and explore and also exercise. And with that, everybody, meet my guest, Yonni Wattenmaker. Welcome to the show, Yanni.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So the show is called Audacity of Entrepreneurs. And you've done something very different. A lot of entrepreneurs, when you ask them, they say, oh, I was always an entrepreneur. I was selling, lemonades when I was a kid and, paper rounds, which then led to something else and led to something else. So in your case, it's a little bit different, which is very much one of the struggles of entrepreneurs. So everybody listening, today we are going to talk about the hardest part of taking the plunge into the entrepreneurial journey, which is what Yonni went through. So she's going to share with us what it's like before you make that decision. What are some of the struggles, some of the considerations? Of course, everybody's circumstances are different, but we are going to hear from Yonni what her circumstances were and how she reached that decision. And then during the decision, in other words, once you've made that decision, you're never certain, right? So it's always thinking, I wonder if I made that decision, whatever, right decision. And then the aftermath. Once you are in, and you're marching forward. What are some things that people come across? And also, what I'm especially interested to hear is from a woman's point of view. Because women, let's face it, for men, we just go out there and we are the hunters, and that's always been the case. So it kind of comes naturally. But for women, that's a different situation. So I am looking forward to this conversation. So with that, Yanni, let's dive right in. So tell us, what was it like for you to make that decision? And what was the thing that told you, okay, that's it, the time has come, now let's do this?
So I am fortunate to have had a very rewarding career. So I really loved what I did. I built what I did with very little staff. When I started, it was a local organization. When I left, it was one of the most prominent national organizations there is for breast cancer. And it's very hard to walk away from a role where you know that you are playing a significant part in saving people's lives and changing people's lives. But it became something that was all encompassing. And at some point, about 6 months before I left, I took a really hard look at where my life was. I know women always talk about work-life balance. I don't know how often men talk about it, but women talk about it a lot. And I really didn't have that balance. Most of the years, I didn't take the vacation I was allocated. I didn't take sick days. I didn't have weekends off. I didn't have evenings off. I was constantly available. And I left my role in November of 2024, but really about 6 months prior, started to look at it and say, is this still serving me? Is there a way for me to continue to do something meaningful, but also not feel like I'm sacrificing myself or my time with my family or the things I hope to do? I was already over 50. I, thank God, have good genes. I hope to have a lot of years ahead of me, but it was really this midlife moment of, is this what I want to continue to do with my time? And is this still serving me in the way that it did? And so it is without exaggeration that it took me 6 months to say, I'm going to go. And for 3 of those 6 months, I had a draft email, maybe 4 months, in my computer, in my Word document, so I couldn't hit send by mistake. That was a resignation letter. And I kept rewriting it. And I sat on it and I would rewrite it and I would delete things and I would add things and I would change how it sounded and use a little AI to say, how does this come across to you? But it was a really hard decision because ever since I graduated from college, I was primarily the breadwinner in my family. I subsequently went through a divorce, so I was certainly the breadwinner. I was a mom. I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I always let people rely on me. I never relied on myself and I never relied on other people. I mean, I have wonderful parents, but I wasn't asking them for anything. So the decision to leave was, for me, very complicated because it was a financial risk. It was am I really good enough without this job to find something new? If I could do anything, what would I want to do? And so all of that turmoil and questioning was what I spent those 6 months experiencing until I finally had the courage and a partner who was gracious enough to say, I've got you. You have to do what's best for you. Make the decision on your own. That I, went to work one day and said, okay, this is my last day, and sent the letter.
Wow, 6 months. 3 months of which it's all about wrestling with the idea. So I started companies, and looking back at how I started them, for me it was never a preparation. In other words, putting your ducks in a row and then, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this person, that person. So there is like a bit of a, if you like, a foundation. By the time you are completely on your own, there is some business coming through. So it sounds to me like you never did any of those things. What was going to pay the bills? I mean, this is even scarier to me. It's how did you do that, and how much time did that take after you said that's it, and then you walk away?
Well, so fortunately, I was not responsible for a mortgage or for a car payment. I had an apartment that I was responsible for, but I was able to get out of the lease. So that can't be understated enough. And when I was going through my divorce, I didn't have the luxury of those things being taken care of for me. So, that was a separate issue, but I was gainfully employed. But for me, I think because I've always had other interests, so I wasn't technically an entrepreneur, but I was always interested in health and wellness. So I got certified as a health coach because it was of interest to me. I like to study. I like to learn new things. I love to cook. So I had a blog. I had a certificate. I didn't have clients, but at least not paying ones. I had a lot of free clients. But during those 6 months, there was a lot of internal searching of, if I'm going to do something next, what is that going to look like? What would I want to do sort of as a volunteer, which is where the podcast started? And what would I want to do in terms of generating some income? And thankfully, I had some money that I put aside to help pay the bills that I had, even, without the mortgage and the car payment responsibility. But also, I had ideas. So I knew that I had this opportunity to launch this new concept for a property group. I had years and years of not concierge planning really, but when you're working in a nonprofit, most of what you're doing is concierge, making sure people are happy, their needs are met. It's just a different word for it. And I had years and years of event planning. So I knew those were things that I could bring to the group and help to launch it and elevate it. So that was where I started. I'm certainly not earning what I was before, but it's taking off. I've already built a reputation in the new city that I've moved to for the ability to be able to do this. And I'm a good networker. And for me, the podcast and the coaching was a way for me to take the really meaningful part of what I walked away from, which was how do I continue to help serve others? Whether it's because they now hire me as a coach and I work with them to get their nutrition in order and get them feeling the way they want to, or through the podcast to say, what are the connections that I have that I could broadcast out through this radio station and this podcast to help women learn what they need to learn about their own health and wellness and potentially find sources for that. So that was a long-winded way of hopefully answering your question, but the financial piece was the hardest piece. But I think because I took so long to make the decision to say I'm out, I had time to think thoughtfully about how I would spend my time. And truthfully, we're a year and a half in, and that's all still, I'm still learning. I'm still navigating. I'm still growing. I'm still pivoting. But the core of what I decided I wanted to do is at the heart of what I'm doing, except now I have more of a life. And when I'm sitting with friends and family, I don't have an iPhone or a laptop in front of my face. I can have a communication and look people in the eye and really be fully present in a way that I couldn't before.
Yeah, so you said several things. I kind of made mental notes. So first of all, what I heard you mention is you put yourself in a resourceful position. In other words, you had that property management, the events. That's something that you're not necessarily passionate about, but you do have the knowledge. So in other words, that's where you can generate some income. So you had that under your belt. Also, what I'm hearing is you really pursued your passion. It wasn't necessarily the breadwinner. It was the passion that led you to where you are today. In fact, when you and I first talked, you immediately mentioned your podcast, and then you mentioned the property management next because you put the passion. So anybody who is listening who is also looking to take the plunge, you have to find a passion subject, right? So that's what is driving. And the other thing is you didn't jump right in. So you took your time to really figure out these are the things that look like that brought you here. And as far as
Can I say something about that, Nick?
Yeah,
Actually,
sure.
again, I don't know if this is a female thing or not, but I had a lot of guilt in this decision. And I know I disappointed a lot of people by making this decision who I knew through the job. But the people who were closest to me said to me, you have to take time off. It doesn't matter if you have ideas. You never take time just to breathe, just to be. And again, I was fortunate that I was in a position where I could do that. But I took 2 months where I actually did nothing. I traveled. I saw friends. I went to the movies. I went to theater. I spent a lot of time with family. And that really helped prepare me to then go and dig in and really give me the clarity on where I had to start.
So this was before your resignation or after?
After my resignation, before I started the new job.
Oh, so when you left, you resigned and you left, you didn't do anything for 2 months.
Right.
So were you thinking in the back of your mind during those 2 months, oh, I want to go back or I should go back? I'm not sure. No, there was no second guessing.
Not once. Not once.
Right.
I was, by the time I had done so much second guessing in those 6 months of, can I leave this? Will I lose friends? Will I lose my reputation that I worked so hard to build? Will I disappoint people? What will they do if I leave? There's nobody there to step in. It was all of that questioning, all of that guilt happened during those 6 months. So when I finally left, I never looked back.
You kind of became numb to the feeling of
Yes. And as soon as I left, people called me and said, "Wait, I have a job for you." And I was like, "Nope, nope. I'm
yeah.
flattered, but."
So those who told you to take time off, those are the people who supported your decision. Okay. And the ones who didn't support you, what was their beef with this idea? Why did they not support you?
I was very much synonymous with the foundation. If you knew the
Oh,
foundation, you knew me, and vice versa. And the fact that I left and people were so blindsided was really hard for people there to deal with. And I think for me, my challenge was, how did you not see on my face how I was feeling? And how do you not respect the decision that I've made clear was a very painful one to make? And there were plenty of people who stood by me and understood and said, I only wish I knew sooner. And other people who couldn't forgive me for making the decision. But I've learned that in life, and this was a very hard thing to learn, you can't make everybody happy. And, I'm 54. It took me a really long time to learn that. But I tried my whole life to make people happy. I put everybody else's happiness in front of mine. And at some point, and again, maybe it's a female thing, maybe it's a type A thing. I don't really know. I qualify for both. But I had to learn that was okay.
yeah, that's true. I mean, unfortunately, it's our upbringing, right? So we want to appease people, and we want to put them ahead of our own interests, our own desires. But in the process, you become unhappy yourself, and if you are unhappy, you're not good for anybody, because happiness is the key. This is so right. I often hear this. They say, what are your plans for the future? Like, people ask, what are your plans? I have one word answer: happiness. As long as you put happiness right in the center of everything that you're doing, the rest will work out, because you can fixate on little things, and then the material things, or whatever the case may be. It's just, even if you get them, because by the time you get those things, there's something else that you've you have identified, so you're never happy. So indexing yourself to these little goals here and there, it's you never get to enjoy it. But happiness is key. And you're right, you can't make everybody happy. What I find interesting is, I often hear this in marriages, when one of the people say, oh, I want a divorce. Why is that? I'm not happy. Well, what's wrong? I thought we were happy. Why didn't you tell me? If I have to tell you, then what's the point, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the lesson. So before the decision, take your time. Also, take your time for yourself. And then when you make your decision, you're not going back. Don't second guess. And then also have a passion subject, and also some resources, both in terms of covering your expenses, as well as some ways to make some money, if in the meantime, as you pursue the passion. So those are the takeaways from everything you described. Is that right? Okay. So you have made your decision, and then in your case, actually, this is the perfect description of during the decision, because those 2 months. So what's going through your mind during those 2 months as you're traveling? You've made the decision, but really nothing is happening yet.
Right. Well, I knew, because the whole purpose of this podcast, being an entrepreneur, right? I knew that whatever was going to happen was going to be at my will, right? It was going to be all about my determination and me figuring out how to make it happen. And so I really took that time to enjoy where I was, to enjoy the people I was with. I moved to a new place that I had only been visiting before. and now visit the place I used to move regularly. I used to live regularly, so that was a big change. But I'm also a very grateful person, so I tried to remain grateful every day for where I was, for what I was experiencing, for the ability to reinvent myself, for the ability to say what really gives me joy and can I make it happen. And I did toy with multiple times, should I be an entrepreneur or should I go take one of these jobs that somebody's offering me because I know how to do it and they know I know how to do it, and then I would have a paycheck. But then I thought, but then I go back to what I just left. I go back to it's not going to be 9 to 5. It's going to be when I wake up until when I go to bed. And I won't be able to continue to travel like I have. I may not be able to go back and visit family as often or friends as often. And, those are sort of the trade-offs that I considered. But I also just took the time to enjoy the time. And then once I came back, I sat down with my podcast, co-host and said, okay, we had picked a name. But we said, okay, who do we know who could come on? How many episodes do we want to do? I'm sure you went through this, right? Like, am I going to use a production team? We got connected with this radio station. How often do we want to record? All the questions. And that gets you caught up. And then with the property group, it was, how do I elevate this to a point where what I'm offering also brings me satisfaction, right? I don't want to just say like, okay, we offer concierge services, so call us and we'll bring you food to your room, right? But do we want to plan parties? Do we want to plan family reunions, celebrations, all of those things? So that kind of detail came once we were building and growing, and we're still modifying now a year and a half later, but we have a really good structure in place, and now it's just opportunity to grow.
So, are you in terms of building the business? Are you more focused on relationships, or are you focused on making a plan and then executing the plan and then checking, projecting and things like that? How do you operate?
I'm really type A, so I always have some sort of plan, and I need structure. So even I will say this, when I got back from those 2 months and I started working, I knew work was not going to fill the time anything like what I had done before. So I built a schedule into my day. So it could have been spend an hour on the podcast every day, exercise for 1 hour every day, research concierge business every day, take a property management class. I built structure in so that I didn't lose what I already knew, in terms of how I operate. So there is a lot of planning that's involved, but by nature, I'm a networker. So even moving to a new city and making friends, it was all from meeting someone, making a connection, meeting somebody else, sending out emails saying, here's who I am, here's what I do. We launched our business in February of last year, and by July, we were asked to be on the cover of the local magazine.
Wow.
So, it's not a Fortune 500 company, but somewhere between February and July, we had made enough of an impact where we were that people were taking notice. And so we've built clientele, we've built the number of properties that we manage. And same thing with the podcast. I didn't know who was going to listen. I didn't know if people who used to be a part of my foundation were going to follow me somewhere new. And some have and some haven't. But we have with one podcast a month and barely a year in, we have over 60,000 downloads on the radio station. And that doesn't include whoever's listening to us on Spotify or, iTunes or wherever else they're tuning in, iHeart, Amazon Music. So, it's a lot of talking to people, meeting people, finding out where they are, seeing how you can align with them. I mean, that's a lot of how I spend my time and building both.
And on the podcast, so you mentioned you have a partner. Are you just talking to each other, covering different subjects, or do you usually have guests?
We almost always have guests. My partner, Heather, is a breast cancer survivor. She's also a brilliant entrepreneur herself. So I've taken some advice from her too. But we liked that we had initially, we talked about doing a breast cancer focused podcast because I had the business medical research side of things and she had the personal experience. But then we soon decided that to just have a podcast about breast cancer was too limiting. But I have a tremendous network of brilliant physicians and people in that space, or survivors of different diseases, or women working in interesting nonprofits. Like we had on the CEO of Livestrong, alongside a woman living with stage 4 breast cancer who founded a cancer support program for any type of cancer, male and female, pediatric, anything you can think of. We've had a nutritionist come on to talk about New Year's resolutions and women's health and diet myths and facts and what people really need to know. We had menopause experts. So I'm lucky in that each of us, we bring different people to the table and we talk to one another and get to know one another better by having these experts or survivors of other things on the podcast together.
So since this is your both your knowledge as well as passion subject, so there is a sensitive subject in podcasting. It's about monetizing your podcast. So what can you share with us about your podcast in terms of how to go about monetizing? Because these days podcasts are becoming uh, really the source of a lot of knowledge and frankly very interesting conversations. And as yet, it's not easy to put together a podcast. Plus, it's ongoing. It's not like a website you put up once and then you update once in a while. This is like ongoing basis. So, share with us your journey in podcasting, how you go about monetizing.
Well, I'm going to learn from you. We're still new at this. She's, like I said, a brilliant entrepreneur, but never has done it in this space. So the first year we were actually funded by the generosity of people who she knew. And so that was wonderful for us and really helped to get us off our feet. This year, we were very fortunate. There's this wonderful company called Sleep Again Pillows who makes sleep systems for people who've had surgery or recovering from different conditions. And they make these wonderful pillows and pajamas and all of these things. And they thankfully sponsored us for all of 2026. But what we're also doing is, again, in an attempt to give back, but be entrepreneurial at the same time, we've developed a line of bracelets. Our website is called Odds On Outfitters. And each of the bracelets that you can purchase, a portion of the proceeds goes to some sort of health initiative. So our goal is that people will shop and we can use some of the proceeds to support the podcast. And at the same time, a portion of the proceeds will go to women's health initiatives. So, or some men's. In fact, we actually just sold quite a number of bracelets to a gentleman who has his own Parkinson's foundation. We're talking to a metastatic breast cancer foundation right now. We're hoping to do some work in the ovarian cancer space. And so that's another way for us to hopefully start to bring in some revenue, but continue along, in line with our mission, which is to give back and help other people.
So, yeah, I mean, look, you're doing all the things that podcasters do, creating, especially in this space where you have a cause associated with your podcast, creating merchandise, etc. One of the podcasts that I like in terms of his approach is Bill Maher. Do you follow Bill Maher?
I haven't listened to his podcast, but I think he's terrific.
I like him very much because of his talk about Audacity. He used to have his show on ABC called Politically Incorrect, and then he was fired for being politically incorrect.
And now he's politically incorrect somewhere else. Yeah.
You hire a host, a comedian, or for anybody who cares about nobody. And so anyway, So his podcast is called Club Random.
Okay.
So he has obviously videos. So for anybody who does podcasts these days, you have to do it in audio and video because it gives you, it's a whole different audience. With audio, people listen longer periods of time when they're driving or they're exercising, and nobody watches a 1 hour long video. But at the same time, you create a lot of awareness with your videos. And the other thing is, when you have a video podcast, you must have those shorter clips and the real videos, those that people love to scroll. And that creates a lot of awareness, can go viral, increase subscribers. And the other thing is, if you do hit a discussion point and suddenly it goes viral, and all it takes is one or two times things going viral, then you can get your YouTube channel qualify for monetization as well. And then YouTube will start running ads, and then they'll write you checks, blah blah. However, none of these things will make a good living. You have to, these are just what I call icing on the cake. You have to have different ways to monetize the podcast. So but it just gets you out there. It puts you in touch with people. You have meaningful conversations, right? So that's a big deal, because being a networker, I'm sure you appreciate, otherwise everybody working from home remotely, right? The old days of networking no longer here, right?
Right. Right.
So okay, let's talk a little bit about the after the decision part, where now you're running a business. So one thing that I've been dying to ask you since you started telling us your story, one of the reasons why you wanted to leave was you had no work life balance. So as an entrepreneur, now that you're running the operation, that this is it, there's no going back anyway, do you have that work life balance now?
I think I do. It's funny because I was talking to my partner yesterday about a conversation I had with this one group and then this meeting that I had with this other group. And he said, "You're going to wind up back where you were." And I said, "No, because it's on my terms. So if I do something and it's not gratifying, or if it gets to be too overwhelming, I just say, I can't take any more clients." Right. Or if I volunteered to help event planners to do something for their events, and I don't want to take it on because it's going to be too many hours in my day, then I don't take it on. But in the meantime, I'm not as close to as being as busy as I was. And so for me, it's exciting to sort of watch all these pieces come together and have the opportunity to then pick which are the ones that are the most fun, which are the ones that are actually making me money, and then pick and choose from that. But, one of the other advantages that I have is I don't have little children at home. So that's one advantage. I mean, I love my son more than anything, but he's grown. And so, and he's working on his own. So he has less of a work-life balance than I do. And I just blanked on what the other thing was, but it's a very different. And the other thing is the ability to work remotely. So of all of the clients that I've worked with through the property group so far, planning their rehearsal dinners or wedding, cakes, or their bachelorette parties or their milestone birthday parties, whatever it is, I haven't met any of them in person. None of them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It hasn't sacrificed the quality of the work because I know how to do my job. But I could have done it from Barcelona. I could do it from LA, right? I don't have to be there. So it's if you know how to do what you want to do and you know how to operate and complete the task, that also definitely helps with the work-life balance. If I had to physically be here for every single thing that I did, it would be much more taxing. But even with even with my health coaching, I was speaking to a medical facility that I'm going to be partnering with on coaching. And I said, tell me about your pay scale for people who come in. How do you charge? And they said, oh, almost everybody is virtual. You won't have to see anybody except on Zoom. And I thought, well, that's great, because then if I'm in New Jersey next week or I'm in Connecticut, I can still get on Zoom just the same as I can from Charleston.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there is a tremendous benefit to that. And there was a component to that in the last couple of years of my old job, since COVID, of course, but there was still very much a need to be physically present, even when it wasn't really a need to be physically present.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, post-COVID, remote became the standard, and wherever people can. Now, sometimes I think that does remote give you more time? Because it's remote, you're working all the time. Like I don't get out of my get off my desk, so to speak, before 8 o'clock in the evening, 7:30, 7:30 earliest. And also, if you, in the old days, if you had an appointment with someone, let's say it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you get there for 2 o'clock and you wait a little bit outside, and then it would be fine to be there or to start your meeting at 10 minutes, 15 minutes past 2, and then you have to go back home or whatever, or back to your office. Now you have an appointment at 2 o'clock, you have an appointment at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
what I now do is I say, granted, I didn't do it. My day got screwed up today because we had a repairman here, but I will build in those windows of, if I don't exercise today, I'm going to be really unhappy. So I will block the time on my calendar. Or if I know I have to go do something for my stepdaughter, or if I know I have to go somewhere and meet somebody, I've learned to build those blocks in. Whereas before, I would be driving to a meeting and I would take calls in the car because I couldn't afford to lose the time while I was in the car to go to my next meeting. And then I'd be in a meeting, but I'd have my email open because I couldn't miss an email. And then if I emailed somebody and said, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you later, they'd ring my phone or they would text me. And it's so I feel like it's much more compartmentalized now.
Yeah. So I have this, it's partially guilt, the source of guilt, it's partially responsibility. The age-old dilemma for entrepreneurs who are operators and also hunters. When you're working, you're busy working, providing the service, like you're doing your podcasting event, whatever, and there is no time to go get new business. So you're busy working. However, when those jobs are completed, you're no longer busy working, but now your income takes a hit. So now you have to go get busy hunting. So there is this, at least for myself, I mean, thankfully I passed that stage, but I remember that I was always feeling guilty. So if I was busy working, it's the workload that I have to keep up with. And at the same time, I'm not hunting. So what's going to happen after this is over? And then whenever there was nothing to do or little to do, and I had plenty of spare time, so I had to go try and figure out getting new business or whatever. So that never-ending cycle was not an easy thing to handle. So yeah, I would run every week, and go to the gym and do this, that, the other. But sometimes I didn't feel like doing it because I felt that, no, I have to put time into this. Don't you get those feelings?
I do. With the property group, I have 2 partners. So we're doing the work together, but property management, and there's, like a real estate side too, which is a separate story. But the property we have the properties, we're managing them. So unless something goes really wrong, we have some steady source of some sort of income, and then it's just enticing the clients to buy the services, and we're getting savvier even about how we're selling the services as we go. Because like I said, I love to learn. So I will hop on a webinar and I'll see if there's something that can benefit us that also makes us work smarter. But to your point, yes, I mean, I not only moved to this new place and had to meet friends, but then I met friends and I thought about, like, they have something interesting to offer. They're interested in what I have to offer. So what if I sat with them for an hour and said, I'll buy you coffee. Who do you think who might be interested in what I do? Or who should I reach out to? And so that's been helpful. I'm not afraid to ask that question because I'm not really asking something of anybody that they wouldn't ask me. I'm not asking them for money. I'm not asking them for a job. I'm asking them, these are the skill sets that I possess. These are the areas that I'm interested in pursuing. Who do you recommend? And that's how I wound up with one of the meetings I had yesterday. And the other one was fortuitous. They reached out to me about concierge services. And then when they found out I was a certified health coach, they were like, wait, hold up. There's a whole other piece here that we could do with you if you're interested. So I'm very much about trying to do both at the same time. And I think my job was so enormous at my last job that I was responsible for everything. Really, I had volunteers, but it really all fell to me. So I'm so used to wearing 10 different hats and juggling a million things that for me to network and do the task at hand and seek other opportunities all in one day are like now what's in my DNA. I told somebody once, probably more than once, but I told somebody once that it's like having adult onset ADHD, that when it comes to work, I can't focus on only one thing. I can do it well, but I'm a very good multitasker because I never had the option of being anything else in my last job. If I wasn't capable of managing multiple things at once and planning ahead, but also getting done what needed to happen, I couldn't have done the job for as long as I did it. So those skills have definitely stayed with me and are helping me to forge this new path.
Multitasking. So I attended this talk by a neuropsychologist. He said, show of hands, how many of you multitask? Of course, many hands go up. We are all multitaskers, right? Entrepreneurs. You know what he said? He said, you are all kidding yourselves. He says, on your computer, the way he explained it is this. On your computer, you have your CPU and you have your memory. If you open a Word document, if you open an Excel sheet, if you open a browser, you open multiple browsers, whatever, what's happening in the process? The usage of your memory and CPU is going down. At some point, they start crashing. He says that's how your brain handles multitasking. So in other words, if you are doing two things at the same time, do not think that you're putting 100% into both, because your brain cannot put 100% into multiple things. So he said, for those of you who multitask, my piece of advice to you would be, by all means, work on multiple things, one thing at a time, because otherwise you're going to compromise.
I understand it as a concept. I mean, if I have to write a proposal, like I just had to I had to add some services to my coaching website before I spoke to you. The only browser I can have open while I do that are the photos I need to upload and the actual thing that I'm working on. But I could take a phone call while I'm doing it. I have to make sure I'm doing it correctly, but I could do it. But in my head, multitasking isn't quite, you have two browsers open at once and you're reading them both at the same time. It's more like it's the awareness that multiple things are happening and being able, I don't know, I can't describe it, but I know I can do it in many cases.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what the task is.
Yeah, I mean, look, it at the end of the day, you have these secondary things. Like, for example, if I am creating something, whether it's a solution to something or putting things together, where I need to really think about it, uh, I don't look at anything else, because what happens is there is a price tag. It takes longer, and time is money. And when I say money, especially at certain point in your life, you have less time left, so you don't want to waste waste it. I don't want to take longer than I need to. So I just do one thing at a time. But if I am doing routine stuff, like moving stuff around and organizing, it doesn't take much of a brain work. Then I can be doing other things. That's the way I've done it. And the other thing that he said was multitasking in a way that forces you to focus on multiple things at the same time also takes a toll on your brain, and then you have to like make up for it, and it's either extra sleep or whatever you kind of where anyway. It's these things are things that you kind of learn over time. Nobody comes already. But really, as far as our conversation, what I'm hearing again is planning your day in a compartmentalized way, so that you do keep important things going in your life. You don't put certain things on hold just because you're an entrepreneur. You have to make time.
I think, Nick, the other thing, though, that I think is a benefit is that when I was doing it before, it was all I was doing. Now, I do have time at night where I can turn on the television and just watch the television.
Yeah.
Or I can read a book and I can actually start a book and finish a book, and it's not 6 months later. So I think that's one of the things that I've gained as an entrepreneur and in this career shift was the ability to really also take back time that's undivided.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it helps sort of regenerate whatever brain damage I did.
So I think you still have some skin to thicken. I think it's gonna come. It's gonna come. It's not a. So you kind of remind me of this psychologist. It was about a TV show. So it was the show was based on a true story that this psychologist wrote, and it was about this narcissist who was married, and so he was a true extreme personality disorder. He was a narcissist. He did not see anybody else. Like anything that he was doing for anybody, people say, "Why are you doing this?" His answer would, "Well, it's okay for me. What's wrong?" Like that's how he was. So they interviewed this psychologist, and she said, it's not a bad thing to be a narcissist, because narcissists do not stop. They don't give up. They feel that they need to be the best at what they do. It's not that it's a bad thing to be a narcissist, it's how extreme you are. So, and then she started giving example. For example, narcissists do this, narcissists do that, and also people love narcissists because they dress well, they speak well, they are knowledgeable, and so the reason I'm telling you this story is because you describe being entrepreneur so rosy, and like, you have your time for everything. So this the interviewer said, "Oh my God, is there a way if I'm not a narcissist, I can be a narcissist? Is there a way?" Because you described it so so everybody listen.
Definitely not a narcissist. So that's
No, I mean, but as an entrepreneur, anybody listening to you, it's great. I would ask anyone who is thinking about being an entrepreneur, jump right in. But it's not as rosy as you put it, because a lot of the times I find myself, okay, I have to, if you have a team, for example, the team needs you, and you have to go deal with them. And at the same time, you may be going through a real personal struggle.
100%.
You have to put it aside, listen to the team, show them compassion or whatever. It's like being sometimes I feel like, you tell me if you have this, sometimes I feel like a clown in a circus where, a loved one died and I have to smile and make people laugh. So these are the moments that I think to myself, you know what, this comes with the territory, right?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I know we've been talking a lot about how life looks different and what's better now, but I have those doubts every day. I mean, I wait, I can't, I would say once a month, I look at my partner and I say, am I doing enough? Are you disappointed? First of all, he's never disappointed. He's amazing. Um, but I feel that all the time. Like, could I be doing this better? Should I have taken that high paying job, even though I wouldn't have liked it? Can I really make this happen? Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Am I talented enough? Was I in a bubble before and I'm not really good at what I do? And then all of that happens all the time. That's been I've done that my whole life. Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? All the things, which is probably why I work so hard and try so hard. But those doubts are real. That fear is real. I mean, I've cried and said, I miss my paycheck. What did I do? Even though I don't need it in the way I did before. It's not all rosy. It is really challenging. And you have to have a lot of stick-to-itiveness. And if you're fortunate like I am, you have a lot of people around you who support you and just say like, no, you can do this, or I'll help you if you can't, but it's definitely hard.
So I want to share with you two things and tell me how you feel. First one is about what you mentioned, miss my paycheck, cry, whatever. So what I always say is things will happen, they'll knock you down. What I learned over the years is you're not a victim. This comes with the territory. And I have not found a way where I can just shake it off and keep going, because that also, you can pretend, but that also puts extra load. So what I do is I give myself permission until I go to bed to feel as lousy as I can be. Like, following it. It's like feel terrible. I mean, I don't cry, but like be the worst you can be in terms of how you feel until I go to bed. And then tomorrow in the morning, it's another day. Put it behind you and move on. In other words, I don't feel guilty for feeling bad. I don't feel guilty for questioning everything, feeling I'm not worthy, I'm not good, I'm not, I suck at it. So I feel all those things until I go to bed. And also, in the meantime, I try and occupy myself with things that I enjoy. For example, I watch an entrepreneurial movie, I watch an action movie, I play a video game, I do something. I don't watch sad movies. So, so to me, and I'm already sad, So get my mind out of it, and then when I wake up, I don't have permission anymore to feel that bad. So what do you think about that approach?
No, I like it. I think it's similar to what I do. Sometimes I just need to go for a run and get my endorphins going and shake it off. Sometimes I have to cry. Sometimes I have to say I'm giving myself permission to sit and binge watch Top Chef and see who won. There's all of that. But I do not play victim. I do not do why did this happen to me? I did this. So I'm not willing to be that person. But I travel a lot. I fly a lot. And one of my favorite expression has become, if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you can't help anybody else. And there is so much truth to that. And it's a very hard thing to understand that that's not selfish. And again, it took me more than 50 years to realize that's not selfish. But if I am crumbling, whether I'm an entrepreneur or I'm working in a big corporation or I'm working in a tiny office, if I can't keep it together, I'm not going to be good for anybody, because I'm not going to be able to do my work. I'm not going to be supportive of others. I'm not going to have any gratitude. I'm not going to have any energy. And so I try, even when I'm feeling all the things that you say you feel too, to keep them, find a way to work through them myself so that I can still be what I need to be for other people, but I'm healing myself at the same time. And it's still very hard. There are some days where I think, like, was I just really selfish today? Was I really lazy today? And then I realize that if I don't give myself permission to have those days, I can't.
Yeah, you are a human being too. You need those. So the second thing is, this is also something that I learned. As entrepreneurs, we have to be innovative, right? At the end of the day, you can come up with ideas, but you're not painting something. You have to have, it has to have commercial value. So you have to figure out how that's going to be. So you are the creator, you are the entrepreneur, you are the producer, you are all those things. It takes a lot of energy to be a self-starter and to make those things happen. So I tell people, especially young people, look, if you want to be an entrepreneur, do it. But ask yourself, the people around you, are they supporting you? Or are they waiting for you to get a proper job one day? Because the only thing that you can count on in order to have that energy to push yourself forward, especially when you're knocked down, is you. If your support system around you, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, or you don't have any of those, your father, mother, whatever, if they are waiting for you to go get a real job instead of doing this and constantly saying, I told you so, why you, that's going to drain your energy and you won't be able to get up once you get knocked down. So be very careful making that decision. You have two choices. If you have those good people that will support you no matter what, like you have, jump right in, because they're going to always push you forward. But if you don't, and you keep those people around instead of distancing yourself, they're going to drain your energy. It's a hard situation, but that's what it is. So how do you feel about that?
I mean, I am really fortunate. I only feel like I have champions around me in my life who are really supportive of me and want me to succeed. But I will say that one of the things I learned as an entrepreneur, which I guess I knew but it's different now. There are a lot of people who say they want to work with you, only for you to realize they want you to help them, but they have no interest in doing anything to help you. And that's debilitating. And that's frustrating, because I naturally trust people, right?
Yeah.
Some people I know right away, but I bet I shouldn't. But my inclination is to trust people because I can be trusted. My inclination is, if they're nice, they're genuine because I'm genuine. And I know that is not the case. And I have, over the course of the last year, learned that the hard way. And there were people I kept following up with, like, oh, you said we were going to do this. Oh, you said you were going to be on the podcast. You said you were going to have me coach your clients. You said you were going to give me this party. You said you wanted me to handle this event for you. And it's like crickets on the other end.
Right.
And it's insulting, and it's off-putting, and it can set you back, and it can affect your mood and all the things. And I'm finally started to say, you know what, like, I tried this many times, and then after that, I'm out. I'm not wasting my it doesn't make me feel good. It's not getting me anywhere. I have to move on. So fortunately, I learned it the hard way, right? I feel like I'm getting taken advantage of, or, whatever the case may be. But thankfully, the people who are around me, who are really the people in my life, only want me to be successful, which is helpful, because even when I say, I don't know that I can do this, they say, you can. When I say I'm grateful every day, I
Yeah.
don't say it lightly. Yeah.
Yeah, gratitude is key. That's something that one needs to practice. So what I learned is you familiar with Steve Harvey, the comedian? So he has this. He used to have his show, and they asked him, "How do you stay upbeat? How do you stay?" He says, "Listen, this is what you do. First of all, you make a list of things that you're grateful for, and don't tell me you don't have any. First of all, you're breathing, you have your health. So start with that. So make a list. Make a list. Every single thing you can think of. Over time, build that list." He says, "I guarantee you're gonna have 30 to 35 things at the very least on that list." So he says, so one day when you get up, you're in a bad mood or something happened or whatever, get that list out, start reading. That will put you in a good mood right away. So gratitude is key. Great conversation, Yanni. These, and you put two entrepreneurs together, it's like two fishermen. They who was talking to, oh, mine was bigger, mine was bigger. The entrepreneurial stories never end. So tell us, how can people reach you? Give us your contact information.
Sure. So the podcast is Her Health Compass, and you can find all about how to follow us and what all the past episodes are about at herhealthcompass.com. My health coaching platform is YonniHealthAndWellness.com. It's YONNI, and is spelled out. And lastly, our property group is On the Coast PG, as in propertygroup.com. And there you can see where our properties are, what concierge or event planning services we do. We do events, like I said, I'm working on events in New York right now, maybe soon to be Philadelphia. So, it varies, and depending on what you're looking for, I may or may not be able to help you. But thank you so much for having me on your show. This was really a treat for the last hour to talk to you.
Oh, yeah. I love conversations always. So I'm sure people will visit. So we'll post your contact information. And anybody tuning in, reach out to her. You've seen her, you've heard from her. She knows how to handle this. And especially for those who are going through the decision-making process. So thank you, Yanni. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. And this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Audacity of Entrepreneurs podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.